If you were born anywhere between 1940 and 1970 and you're collecting Social Security right now, the rules just changed. Not in a small way, in a way that could put thousands of dollars into your account that you didn't know you had coming. Or it could cost you thousands if you don't act in the next few weeks. This happened in July, and most people still don't know about it. The Social Security Administration is not sending letters. They're not calling anybody. They're not doing press releases. The change is real, but it's quiet, and that's the problem. I'm Robert Preston, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly what changed, who it affects, how much money we're talking about, and the specific window of time you have to take advantage of it before the opportunity gets more complicated. This is the kind of change that fundamentally reshapes retirement for millions of people, and almost nobody has heard about it yet. If you're not subscribed yet, do that right now and turn on the bell, because Social Security rules don't change often, and when they do, nobody explains what it means for your specific situation. That's what we do here. Let's get into it. Here's what happened in July. The Social Security Administration made a significant update to how they process certain types of benefit corrections. They streamlined the application process, and they made corrections retroactive to certain dates. What that means in practical terms is that people who were underpaid by the Social Security system now have a clearer path to getting that money back. But, and this is critical, the SSA is not going to tell you if you're one of those people. Let me tell you about a man named Frank from Arizona. Frank was born in 1947. He worked his entire life. He had a career in the private sector for about 25 years. Then he took a job with the city of Phoenix, where he stayed for another 20 years. When he turned 67, he went to claim his Social Security. He expected somewhere around $2,100 a month based on his earnings history. What he got was $1,680. Frank thought maybe his earnings records weren't complete. Maybe he had a year that didn't get reported properly. He accepted the number and started collecting. For 12 years, Frank collected that amount, $1,680 every month. That's a difference of $420 a month from what he expected. $420 a month is $5,040 a year. Over 12 years, Frank was underpaid by over $60,000. Frank never questioned it, because that's what most people do. The government sends you a number. You're 67 years old. You need the money. You accept the number. You don't challenge it. You don't call anybody. You just take what they give you. Then, in July of this year, something changed. Frank was watching a video about Social Security and heard about the July updates to the correction process. He didn't think it applied to him because he'd already been collecting for 12 years. But he called the Social Security Administration anyway, just to ask. The representative he talked to pulled his file and found it immediately. Frank's earnings record had never been fully corrected. 3 years of his early employment had been reported at zero earnings by an employer that had gone out of business decades ago. The SSA recalculated his benefit using the corrected earnings record. His new benefit amount was exactly what he expected, $2,100. The difference between what he should have gotten and what he actually got was $420 a month. And because of the July updates, the correction was made retroactive to January 2024. Frank received a lump sum check for $12,600, 12 years of back pay in a single deposit. And now, every month for the rest of his life, Frank gets $420 more in his account. That's $5,040 more per year. Frank is in his late 70s now. If he lives to 90, he's going to receive an additional $70,000 because the system got updated and he took 30 minutes to make a phone call. Frank's situation is not unique. It's actually far more common than most people realize, and here's why. The Social Security system is built on decades of earnings records reported by employers. Many of those employers don't exist anymore. Payroll records get lost. W-2 forms disappear. Tax records from the 70s and 80s are just gone. When those records disappear, the Social Security Administration often doesn't have documentation to prove you earned money in a particular year, so they leave that year at zero on your record. And a 0 year in your earnings calculation reduces your entire benefit permanently. Now, What makes this particularly devastating is that the Social Security Administration themselves have acknowledged making approximately $2.5 billion in underpayments in 2022 alone. $2.5 billion. And according to research from Social Security Intelligence, nearly half of all earnings record mismatches in the system are never corrected because the people affected never knew to look for them, never knew to ask, never knew they could challenge the number they were given. Think about that statistic. Nearly half. That means millions of Americans are collecting smaller Social Security checks than they should be because an earnings record somewhere in the system is incomplete and nobody told them. The July update that happened this year streamlined the correction process. What used to be a complicated bureaucratic procedure that could take months now has a clearer timeline. What used to require extensive documentation can now be processed with a simple request. And what previously was only paid going forward is now retroactive to January 2024 for certain types of corrections. But here's the catch. You have to ask for it. You have to initiate it. The SSA is not proactively reviewing accounts. They're not sending letters to people whose records might have errors. They're not going through the system identifying who was underpaid. That burden falls entirely on you. Let me tell you about another person because this is important. There's a woman named Joyce from Texas who was born in 1953. Joyce worked as a hairdresser for most of her life. She was self-employed for a period, which meant she paid Social Security taxes through her self-employment income. Then she worked for a salon for about 15 years where she was a W-2 employee. When Joyce turned 66, she went to claim her Social Security. She got a monthly benefit of $1,130. Joyce had a rough sense that something wasn't right with that number. She remembered making pretty decent money in certain years, but she couldn't prove it. She had old tax returns, but they were scattered. Some were in storage, some were just gone. She accepted the benefit and moved on. Last month, Joyce was talking to her sister and mentioned the number she was collecting. Her sister, who is an accountant, did a rough calculation and told Joyce that her benefit sounded low. Joyce decided to actually look at her earnings history on the Social Security website. She logged in. She looked at the year-by-year breakdown. What she found shocked her. 3 years in the late 1990s showed $0 in earnings. Even though Joyce had tax returns showing she made between $35,000 and $40,000 in each of those years. Joyce called the Social Security Administration and asked about the correction process. The representative told her about the July updates. Joyce didn't have all her documentation, but she had enough. She had 3 W-2 forms from the years in question and a couple of old tax returns. She submitted a correction request using the streamlined July process. The SSA told her to expect a response in 30 to 45 days. 2 weeks ago, Joyce got a call from the SSA. They had reviewed her submission, confirmed the earnings, and recalculated her benefit. Her new monthly amount is $1,390. That's $260 more per month. That's $3,120 more per year. Joyce got a retroactive lump sum for the back payments. $16,120. Money she didn't even know was owed to her. And here's the part that really matters. Joyce was able to do this. Joyce was able to get her earnings corrected. Joyce was able to claim money that was legitimately owed to her. But most people in her situation never will because most people don't know this is possible. The reason I'm being so specific about the July timeline is because there's a window here. The law that made these corrections retroactive to January 2024 is relatively new. The streamlined process is relatively new. The Social Security Administration is still working through the backlog of how to implement this. Right now, they're more responsive. Right now, the process is clearer. Right now, you can get results faster than you could have a year ago. But this window doesn't stay open forever. Let me be direct about something. If you were born in the 1940s, 1950s, or 1960s, you're in a critical window. You're at or past your full retirement age. That window, where you can request corrections, provide documentation, and get retroactive payments, is now. It's not next year. It's not when you have more documentation. It's now. Here's what I need you to do, and write this down because this is important. First, go to ssa.gov and log into your My Social Security account. If you don't have an account, create one. You'll need your Social Security number and a valid email address. It takes about 10 minutes. Once you're logged in, open your earnings record. It's called your earnings history. Look at every single year, every decade. Go back to the 60s if you have to. You're looking for any year that seems wrong, a year that shows $0 when you know you were working, a year where the amount seems far lower than what you actually earned, a gap in the timeline. If you find one of those gaps, you found potential money that was taken out of your benefit calculation without your knowledge. Write down those years. Write down what you remember about what you earned. Second, gather documentation. Pull out your old tax returns if you have them. Look for W-2 forms. Check if you have old pay stubs. Even 1 or 2 years of documentation can be enough to open a correction. You don't need everything going back to the 70s. Start with what you have. If you were self-employed, your Schedule C tax forms from those years are gold. The Social Security Administration can cross-reference those. Third, use the Corrected Earnings Record Form, SSA 708. That's the official request for correction of earnings record. It's available on the SSA website. Fill it out, attach your documentation, send it in. Or you can do this by phone. Call the Social Security Administration at 1-800-772-1213. That's 1-800-772-1213. Ask them to open an earnings record review under the July update. Those specific words matter. They tell the agent which system to access. Or you can go into your local Social Security office in person and bring your paperwork. Any of those 3 options work. Here's what happens next. The SSA receives your request. They review your documentation against their records. If the documentation is clear, they verify the earnings and credit them to your record. The correction timeline has been streamlined under the July update. Most requests are processed between 20 and 60 days now. When they finish, if there's a balance owed, they calculate the back pay and issue it as a lump sum direct deposit. But here's something critical about the timing. While the July update improved the timeline, there is still a general guideline about how far back earnings can be corrected. Earnings can generally be corrected most easily within 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the tax year in which those wages were paid. What that means is the older the error, the more documentation you're going to need, and the harder it might be to verify. If you remember earning money in 1985 but you don't have a W-2 and you don't have a tax return and the company is long gone, that's going to be harder to prove than if you have earnings from 2018 with documentation you can provide. This is not a reason to panic. It's a reason to move on this now. The longer you wait, the harder the documentation becomes to find. Now, I want to address something directly because this comes up every time I talk about earnings corrections. Some people are thinking their benefit seems right. They accepted the number they were given. They've been collecting for years. They think this doesn't apply to them. Here's why you're wrong and why you should still check. The Social Security Administration has acknowledged that nearly 50% of earnings record errors in the system are never discovered because people never look, never question, never challenge the number they were given. You could have been collecting an incorrect benefit for 10 years and never know. You could have a missing year of earnings in your record. You could have earnings reported at the wrong amount. The only way you find out is if you look. It takes 30 minutes. Log in. Look at your earnings history. If something seems off, call and ask. That 30-minute investment could put thousands of dollars into your account. Let me also tell you about something that affects people born in the 1940s and early 1950s specifically. If you were born between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age is 66, not 65, not 67, 66. That's the age at which you're entitled to 100% of your earned benefit. Here's the critical thing. If you claimed before 66, your benefit was reduced by a certain percentage. That reduction is permanent. But if you claimed at the right time, or if you delayed past 66, you should be getting delayed retirement credits. An 8% increase for every year you waited past your full retirement age up to age 70. That's potentially a 32% increase. The important thing to verify is that those credits were actually applied correctly. Errors in that calculation are less common, but they do happen. When you look at your earnings history and your benefit calculation, make sure the math matches what you were promised. If you delayed claiming and you're not seeing those delayed credits applied, that's worth a phone call. The bottom line here is this: the July updates to the Social Security correction process are real. They're recent. They're more streamlined than they were. The window to take advantage of them is open now, but this window is not permanent. The SSA is still clearing a backlog. They're still implementing the updates. But the further we get from July, the more routine this process becomes and the longer it takes. If you were born in the 1940s, 1950s, or 1960s, you're at an age where Social Security is important to you. It's not something you have decades to figure out. The money matters now. The corrected benefit matters now. The back pay matters now. Go to ssa.gov this week, not next month, this week. Log in. Look at your earnings history. If something looks wrong, make the call. Gather whatever documentation you have. File the form. That's it. That's the entire process. And the result could be thousands of dollars in back pay, plus a higher monthly benefit for the rest of your life. Send this video to one person you love who was born in the 1940s, 50s, or 60s and is collecting Social Security right now. One share takes 10 seconds. If their earnings record has even 1 year that was recorded wrong, finding it could put thousands of dollars back in their account. That's money the Social Security Administration has been calculating wrong without sending a single letter to tell them about it. If you're not subscribed yet, do that right now and turn on the bell. I upload videos every week about Social Security changes, Medicare updates, retirement rules, and government benefits that change people's outcomes. These are the videos that put money in your account. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.